Okay.
Hi, Ben. I'm just wondering if you can tell us something about what it is that inspires you to teach people to gain confidence in growing food.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. The thing that initially got me motivated to help people grow more food was reading into our current food systems and realizing how broken they are. And initially, this came from an environmental perspective, realizing that we have these massive globalized food chains and huge complexities, and the impact of that is massive greenhouse gases and degraded land and biodiversity loss and things of these nature that felt really well upsetting, and very present. They're huge issues that we're facing, and food seemed like a real key into undoing some of these issues. So as I started to learn more about it, it became really clear that it's in many ways quite a simple solution. There are some really big wins we can get from understanding the food systems a little better, but it also is a very empowering thing to begin to understand, because we can all do it. It's such a simple thing we can do ourselves. And I love these kinds of solutions, because when we spend too much time reading about the political situation or the geopolitics or the large complexities of these systems, we feel very disempowered. Mm. And so this for me is a simple solution that we can do almost immediately. And stick a seed in some soil and watch what happens. And what comes out of that is our food. So that got me really into it early on. And then leaning more into the personal health side of things and realizing that these food systems are also growing something that only looks a bit like food, but isn't really what food could be. Things like the decrease in macro micronutrients in industrialized food systems is really degrading our health. And we see that in the health of our society and the pressures on the NHS and things like that. So it becomes a really political act to grow food, to purchase and source your food from places that are doing it well.
So it's from an empowerment perspective to enable people to grow their own food and also to enrich the food quality.
Yeah. And anyone who's grown a strawberry will tell you that there is no doubt that something is wrong with strawberries that you buy in the supermarket, and that's partly to do with how they're grown, how long they're stored for, but I really think as well there's a large connection there to just the tangibility and the connection to the food itself. If you're the one who's tended the soil and done the weeding and put the seed in the ground and watered the plant, the sweetness of that strawberry is going to be something else. Sorry, go ahead.
Really about that connection with the earth, the connection with that relationship with the earth, because I understand permaculture is very much about relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. It's permaculture's got a lot of definitions, and so it's quite a complex one to pinpoint. But yeah, my interpretation and my use of it is about firstly observing landscapes and systems. Okay. So that does involve some understanding. So we dig into the systems and understand how the relationships within that system function, and then we tend to individual relationships to create a functioning system. And so this is about creating healthy ecosystems, but also permaculture would take into account healthy communities, healthy production lines. And one of the big things for me is decreasing those production lines, bringing things back into the locality and back into something we can really touch and feel and communicate with.
Yeah.
If we know our grower or we grow our own food, we have a relationship to them and to the food itself. And our responsibility to the land and the quality of the food becomes so much more powerful, because if our farmer is also our friend, we are unlikely to be fed food that's poisonous to us. He's going to want to give us nourishing food. He's going to want to encourage us to eat our food as part of the community. And we also don't want to see our local lands degraded. So we're not going to settle for monoculture and pesticide and herbicide in our rivers. And so we fight for the systems that we can see. It's very difficult to feel honestly and deeply passionate about the destruction of the Amazon when it's far away and we see pictures, but we can then go to the supermarket and not really pay that much attention to the real impacts. So yeah, it's about empowerment. There's this lovely idea of active hope, which comes from Joanna Macy and Chris Johnston, And
Tell
for
us a
me,
bit more about Active Hope.
yeah, so there's a kind of, I was experiencing a sense of hopelessness, I suppose, around these systems change, these big issues, and heard these guys speaking about this idea of active hope, which is finding, or digging into what it is that you hope for. What do I want the world to look like? What do I expect from myself and people and future generations? And then find a way to make that happen immediately in your own life. And so if we're imagining that as a food system, maybe we want all food to be organic and everyone to be eating healthy food, but that feels so unattainable. And suddenly we realize I can do that for myself. I can carefully source my food or try and grow my own. I can nourish my body in the right way and understand nutrition, and even on a very small scale. Just so this workshop really is about empowering individual people within their communities and within part of those relationships too, to feel an elevated confidence in where they're going to get their food, for one thing, and what they're going to be receiving when they source food right. Some of the complexities around greenwashing and sustainability issues that we can kind of peel away a little bit and end up with something quite simple. But also just the knowledge that they're going to have a pack of seeds, they can go home, and within a few weeks they can be picking their own lettuce leaves and looking forward to some squash.
And I think something that really struck me when we were talking about the workshop was you said to enable anyone to grow food from a plant pot to a plot of land or a lawn that needs to be changed from a lawn to a vegetable patch. And that's really striking. That was really striking to me as an image, that to enable even those of us with just a plant pot to grow in.
Yeah, and we can all have a plant pot, we've all got somewhere we can grow something, and that connection to the food and to the experience, just observing a seed germinate and sprout and eventually turn into something edible, even on a single plant scale, does connect you to food systems really very strongly, and also connects you to that flavor connection we've been speaking of like this is different, this there's something different about this, and that's really going to encourage people to go out and source food from better places.
And can you tell us just a little bit about your background, what's led you to do this work? Because you've had some in-depth training and experience in growing your own food and developing that, places for other people. So what your own specialty is?
Yeah,
because it's quite diverse. Your
it's very diverse. Lots of different. I mean, I suppose permaculture. I was living in Panama for a little while, and I was involved in a permaculture project at an eco lodge I was working at, and helped design and create some kind of quite tropical gardens there with papaya and lots of lovely things. And that was just fun, really. I just enjoyed that, and I think it sparked an interest in food systems and in tending the land. And so then I continued reading and learning as much as I could. And now, I'm just about to finish a master's in sustainable food and natural resources. And I undertook a 6-month permaculture training in the south of Spain in 2018, which I got a permaculture design certificate, and was part of some beautiful projects there, growing food for their kitchen, but also designing and planting I think we planted 5,000 trees in a food forest on what was desertified land. And now I've kind of gone more into the gardening side of things and this creation of edible landscapes. And one of my real interests is how can we move from what would just be ornamental plants to starting to see things like berry bushes, apple trees, kale, rocket as part of that ornamental feature, part of that creation of a space that's beautiful to be in. But while I'm sitting there, I can be plucking things off the bushes, creating my salads for my dinner, and interacting with the garden, and therefore having a kind of increased relationship to it.
And to observe with a real vision for what's possible. That's what I experience in our conversations, is you have a real vision for what's possible, and to invite us to think, if we want to eat certain things in 50 years time, we need to plant them now, or to really have a vision for how that landscape can work together and create its own unique ecosystem or localized ecosystem that supports as much life as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose growing, particularly when you start moving towards things like tree crops, but even a vegetable garden, an annual vegetable garden, it is a real lesson in patience, persistence, So yeah, for me, it feels like a bit of an antidote to this kind of immediate gratification experience that's so pushed through social media and whatnot. Yeah, it slows you down. What you're going to do if your seed grows slowly? It grows slowly. You have to watch, wait, and tend.
Yeah,
it's all about care over time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when we start to look at the longer term solution to the bigger food systems, yeah, we're talking about starting to do things now that are transitions for people in 100 years time. So it is something to begin early. It's something to begin as quickly as we can, but it's also such a tangible change. You can create a veg garden in the winter, and by June, July, you can be feeding yourself an abundance of food. And we can scale that up to landscape scale. We've got abandoned land all over the places that could be just full of things that people don't even need to pay for. They can just be plucking off the trees and eating on their way to work or school. So it's very experiential transition, very experiential movement, and just so accessible.
Beautiful. And we're so grateful to you for bringing your skills and expertise to us on the 30th of July at Snowdonia Mountain Lodge. And I think we'll have a wonderful day, which is going to be part theory, isn't it? Introduction to theory of permaculture, or the principles, and in part it will be practical. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we'll kind of lay it out as the morning being more theoretical, but we're going to tap into some of that theory through experiential movement and some exercises, looking at things like carbon footprinting of different products. We're going to have a lovely lunch at the lodge. They make beautiful food there.
Yeah.
And then we will be outside for the afternoon, and we'll learn some basics of growing, but also be observing the landscape and be starting to kind of see through a permaculture lens. Like, what does it like to put on those permaculture glasses and look around and start to see how things interact, how relationships happen. Where's the sun? Where's a good spot for this plant or that plant? Where's a nice place for me to sit down once I've planted this tree? So really starting to observe landscapes through that permaculture lens. And then we'll learn how to build what's called a permabed, a permanent raised bed. That is a fantastic way of really quickly building these abundant food systems on small spaces.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to it myself so much. And I think the title, People Care, Earth Care and Fair Share, gives a bit of a flavour of the intention behind the day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a really holistic day. We'll be having lots of different conversations. It's going to be quite open and free flowing. And so people can bring their knowledge and their thoughts on these topics, and we can have debates, we can have conversations, we can really get deep into it. I'm looking forward to it.
We're all looking forward to meeting anyone that can join us on that day. So thanks so much, Ben.
Cool. Thanks, Susan.
I look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, see you soon.
See you soon.